Why make the shift to the Cohesive Schools framework? Well, let me ask you a question. How are you feeling about the outcomes of students in your school and in your classrooms? Are students in your school growing more year after year relative to their state or district peers? We call this academic momentum. Are they gaining more ground every year? Building academic momentum is the ultimate goal of the Cohesive Schools framework. Raising or changing the expectations of your school requires adjusting your lens for what's required of students and teachers to reach these expectations. Let's look at each of these three separately. First, the idea that the curriculum and instruction you have in place are responsible for the outcomes that your students are experiencing. We call it the power of the instructional core, which is an idea from Richard Elmore. Teachers and teams become more effective once they realize that they can focus on specific actions, specific behaviors, whether it's teaching behaviors or changes in the curriculum, that can have a significant impact on the outcome of students, a cause and effect relationship. They can answer the question, what needs to change with the curriculum or how I'm instructing for students to learn more effectively? They start to pay attention and pay a special attention to the floor and ceiling of current instruction. By floor, I mean, are the students coming in at a level that's below what my instructional level is? Am I asking students to do tasks that are at the top of their range, that will challenge them? That's the floor and the ceiling. Teachers need to pay special attention to that. Second is understanding the cohesive learning language. The more you dig into the framework, the more you're going to identify structures and policies that reduce cohesive learning. An example of this is a focus on performance over long-term learning. Here are some examples that result in leadership decisions that are in response to things like testing and accountability. Standards-based testing structures encourage leaders to make decisions that ignore factor one. They ignore the relevant and usable background knowledge. They also ignore whether students will remember this in the long run. The focus is only on performance today. This could look like focusing instruction on grade level content without acknowledging requisite knowledge or future connections. The goal of instruction become bound to scores. The students will learn what they need to be successful in fourth grade, versus the students will learn in fourth grade what they need to be successful in junior high. These two classrooms would look very different. We have to identify how students accumulate knowledge. If students learn grade level knowledge stacked one grade on top of the next, what happens when they miss a piece along the way? These are all structures, policies, and practices that really reduce cohesive learning. Here's another example. We are in favor of multi-tier systems of support, MTSS. We want intervention for our students who struggle, but there are some baked-in problems with MTSS. One of which is it starts with the premise that 80% of your students are successful or are working at grade level. But in many states, less than 50% are performing at grade level according to tests. And so how do we intervene with 50% of our students? The second problem with some MTSS systems is that students have what we call post-failure intervention. We teach a concept, students aren't successful, and so then they get intervention on that topic. But in this system, they've already missed core instruction. They didn't get what was taught. And in most cases, instruction might be, say, 60 minutes, and intervention might be 30. And so they missed out on 60 minutes of learning and gained only 30. We want to change that intervention so that we're intervening ahead of time and reducing the post-failure intervention. The next question is, do you have the resources to match your need? If you have 50% of your students who need intervention, do you have the resources to intervene with 50%? If you look at the number of students who struggle in your school, do you have enough resources to intervene with them? If not, you have to question the basis of this model. Too often, educators don't pay enough attention to student access and long-term memory. Two questions that we like to explore is, how do students access core content? And how can we teach in ways that promotes better retention or retrieval of learning? Access. When students struggle to learn new content and they're significantly behind, it's nearly always true that they, one, have a lack of familiarity with the content. Two, they're missing requisite knowledge that is essential for making connections. That's often described as students have holes in their background knowledge and we need to fill them. So building relevant and usable background knowledge provides the necessary ingredients for learning. In terms of long-term memory, forgetting is a natural process. Sometimes we pretend that it's not. If we want students to be better able to retrieve knowledge and remember critical content for the long run, we must make some changes in instruction. We must introduce effortful learning. Whatever students think about is what's more easily remembered. We must introduce more repetition. Repeated practice is a key to long-term retrieval. And we must make connections over time and across content. Students need the ability to remember what they learn, which means revisiting it in new contexts over and over. The third is planning for school improvement. This understanding that the actions that your staff take are directly responsible for changes in student outcomes. This is at the core of the cohesive framework. Within each of the three factors, there are specific content and instructional changes that produce significantly better results. Once you've identified a specific factor on which your teams are to focus, and that you want to focus your adult learning, your teams can choose the actions that improve the instructional core. For example, if students are lacking access, teams would develop mini lessons to provide and build usable background knowledge. The specific action would be the creation and teaching of mini lessons containing this background knowledge. In this way, teachers' efforts and actions specific to school improvement are very targeted by factor. The targeted nature of their actions allows for monitoring of progress and attributing specific outcomes to teacher actions. This cause and effect connection empowers teams and it spurs along the process. So why learn about Cohesive Schools framework? Well, the framework helps leaders and teachers target their efforts and actions to specific factors that make learning more cohesive, not narrow and not performance-based. Cohesive learning provides consistency year to year in your school improvement and your professional development. One targeted step leads to another in a logical, visible sequence. The data analysis provides tools to measure progress in the exact areas that you're targeting. And the process builds efficacy and confidence of teams in school improvement efforts. Click on the Contact Us and share your email. We'll reach out to hear more about your specific needs and to share our work. We look forward to you joining our network of leaders and teachers who have a new vision and higher expectations for their school and their classrooms.